G'day all, welcome back to Built by Chris. In this episode I'll show you how I made this. It's a split fence router system for my LS Positioner. And I've got to tell you, it works like an absolute charm. I'm so happy at the way this turned out. There's a few tweaks in here that I've got to do with it. There's a couple of more attachments that I'd like to add to it later on, but that's down the track. But in the meantime, it works like you wouldn't believe. It's got integrated dust extraction in it. It sucks up, I reckon, it's got to be 90% of the sawdust that comes off the router bit. Before it was zero. I had no dust extraction on it at all, so 90% is a great big win for me. But anyway, necessity is the mother of all invention, as they say. I needed one of these, so I thought I'll make one, see how I go, and give it a run. So if you want to see how I put this together, follow me and I'll show you how simple it was. So the first step in this process, or the first thing I've got to do, is make a fence for the fence, if that makes sense. I've got to make something that I can attach my router table fence to my existing Incra fence. Now what I'm going to use here is just a piece of ply. I'm going to trim it down so that it's same height as this. And then I'm going to cut another piece that will sit on top. And what I've done is I have some T-bolts that didn't fit in these two slots because the thread was in the way. So all I did was stuck it in my drill press and filed a bit of it away. So now it fits in here beautifully. So what I'm going to do is cut a piece this way and then cut a piece this way and then drill some holes in there so that I can attach it to the existing fence. So let's get on with it. Okay, so now I purposely made it a little bit higher so I can creep up because I want a nice tight fit on here. You know what, seeing as how that's a perfect fit, I'm not going to bother wrapping it around the other side. I think it'll be fine. So now I've got to set up and cut these two to length. Okay, you can see the setup I've got here. This is flush. It doesn't need to be flush at the moment, but I'm just marking out where I'm going to drill a couple of holes on here, because this is where the T-bolt's going to go through, and I'm going to screw it on through here. So that's where my my hole's going to go. I'll just go and mark out the other end, and I'll drill a few holes. I've got one of my bolts chucked up into the drill press. I'm just going to turn it on, and with the file I'm just going to grind down a few of these threads here so that it'll fit into my T-track. That's perfect. Now all I've got to do is file down another one, and then I can put these two pieces together. What I've done here is I went over to the drill press and I pre-drilled some holes in the top of this. I've now clamped this down so it's flush everywhere, and I'm just going to drill a few more holes, some pilot holes, so I know where those screws are going to go. There we go. Now I'm going to unclamp it. I'm going to do my little trick of countersinking all the other holes so that if there's any tear out or anything, it's not going to foul up a nice tight joint. So there's all my holes. Beautiful. give it a little bit of a chamfer, if anything. There it is. All right, let me just clean up the squeeze out and I'll check it on the fence again. Okay, that's on there nice and tight. It's not going to move, which makes me happy. The other thing I have to make sure is that. Now I'm just going to bring you around. And I hope you can see that, but it is beautiful and square, which is perfect. That's what I need. Okay, now I'll move on to the next part. So in case you're wondering how I'm going to get the fence to extend all the way to here, there's a little trick that the Incra fence system does, the LS Positioner system does, and that is all I've got to do is undo these couple of bolts here. There's 4 of them in total, and there's some positive stops coming forward into this. So all I do then is just move the whole lot forward until I hit those positive stops and then lock it down again. So now I have the same range of movement for my router table as I do for my table saw. And that's how it is, that's how easy it is. Now I've got this little adapter that, that fits into my DeWalt vacuum cleaner, or the dust unit. The only thing is I've got to heat up the pipe so I can press fit that in there. And that's going to be a nice tight friction fit in there. So when I move it all up, the dust extractor is going to be there. All I've got to do is plug my vacuum cleaner into this and I'll have dust extraction. So let's get on with the next part of this, and that is build the little enclosure or the housing for all this. Now what I'm doing here is just cutting 4 blocks at 66mm each. They're going to be my end caps. 2 of them I'm going to have to drill a hole in to accept the PVC pipe. There we go, 4 squares. Okay, I've jumped ahead a little bit. I've cut all the pieces for the next stage of this. I've got the hole cut in here for the pipe. That's going to be my dust extractor. This one's just going to be hollow. There's not going to be nothing in there. So I've got to screw and glue all this together and then attach it to this. This is the part that that attaches to the fence, and then I can concentrate on the split fence. So let me get all this put together and we'll get on to the next part. All right, first thing, I'm going to glue this in with some silicone. So that I know it's going to be a nice tight seal. And it'll also stop the tube from rattling around. Okay, while I'm waiting for the glue to dry, I'm going to start screwing all this together. So let's start it off. Okay, I've got all the parts ready for this part of the build. This is glued on now, so it's not going to go anywhere. And I'm going to be sticking, this is my dust extraction that's going to be integrated in this. So now it's time to glue it all up. I've got my glue stick, let's start gluing up. And again, I'm using the melamine glue here because the yellow glue won't stick to this form ply. Now I've marked it all out which way everything's got to go. There it is. That's all done. That's that main body now done. Now all I've got to do is make a top for it and the sliding fence. So let's go ahead and do that. The next part of this is I'm going to attach this that I've just put together. I'm going to attach it to the part that screws onto the fence. Okay, I'm going to need a couple of clamps. Put a bit of glue on here as well so that it'll stick. Okay, I think that's enough glue. Okay, it's flush with the bottom. Flush with the sides. Let's put a couple of screws in here. There's that first screw. Still all nice and flush. Still all nice and flush. Geez, that slid on nice and easy. Do that up. Now the big test, make sure and it's still square to the table. And I've got to tell you, it is sensationally square. Okay, the next part of this is I'm going to put some screws in here, some threaded inserts, and I'm going to cut the top for this so I can cover all this over and make the sliding fence. The piece I've got here now is the top for all this. This is going to be screwed down permanently to this, but first thing I'm going to do is cut a couple of dados in here and put in some T-track, because there's going to be a sliding piece that fits on here that comes up a bit higher. So when I cut pieces on edge, I'm going to have some support. So the first thing I've got to do now is just cut a couple of dados and then I can screw this down permanently on here. So let's go and set up for that. my setup here is got my dado stack in. I've made a mark where I want my dado to be. I've got the height set to the height of my T-track. How do I know all this? Because I've already run a test piece and I know it all fits. I've got my fence set to whatever the measurement is, and I've got a block here because I'm going to do a through, not a through cut, a cross cut here, and I don't want this piece running against here in case it gets jammed. So I've bumped it out a little bit and I'll run it through, and then I'll turn the piece around and do the same on this side. So I'll know that both these dados are going to be at the same distance from the edges. So let's get to cutting. There we go, nice fit, and it's flush with the top there, absolutely perfectly flush. Same on both. So by the time I glue these in and screw them down, they're not going to move. So this is going to allow me to build another fence that'll slide along here so I can use for support. The piece that I just cut the dados in is now clamped to the top of the main assembly here, the main body. I've got it clamped down so that everything's nice and flush. It's flush here, it's flush at the front. It's all beautiful. So what I'm going to do now is just pre-drill some holes first. So that when I put glue on it, I can then screw it all down and I know it's going to go back into the same spot. Of course, there's always going to be one clamp in the way because you don't think. Top is on. So now you can see there's the area where the router bit's going to sit. I've got my dust extraction in there nicely. It's nice and tight. I've just checked everything and it is square as square can be. And it is still square to the table. Beautiful. Okay, the next part of this now is the actual fence. This is going to be a split fence. I'm going to cut it through the middle here. But before I do that, or maybe I'll cut it in the middle first, then I've got to route out a groove through here that'll accept one of these. Actually, it's going to have two in here. There's going to be a threaded insert. There's going to be threaded inserts in here. I'm going to screw that in so that when I loosen it, I can open the fence up a little bit, then tighten it back down again, or close it. So the opening for the router bit, I can get it up as tight as I possibly can. So yeah, the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to route out this groove. So I've got two router bits, one for this size, for the size of the actual screw part. And then I've got another router bit that's going to house this because I need this to be flush or maybe even a little bit below this surface so it doesn't fail. If I push anything through, I'm not going to be hitting this. So let me set up the router table now. Push all this forward, take this off, push all forward, and I'll set up for this cut. My next setup is I've got the router bit in here. It's going to cut the groove for the bolt. What I've got is two stop blocks set up because I want to limit the travel because I don't want to go all the way through, make it a through cut, otherwise I'll cut this bit in half. And I've got it set from here to here. I've got it set at a certain distance so that it'll cut in that spot as well. So best I get on with the next cut. There it is, one nice clean groove all the way through. The second cut that I'm going to do is now I'm going to trench out a little groove through here, not very deep, just so that it'll accommodate this bolt here, like that. So I just need to trench that out so it goes in, so it's flush with this. So my setup is, I've got my stop blocks in again because I don't want to go past this here, so it's just going to be a rounded bit around here like that. I haven't moved the fence forward or back, I've left it in the same spot, that way I know it's going to cut exactly in that spot again. So let's have a look and see if I've set this up right. As you can see, I've got the whole setup clamped, the split fence clamped to the unit itself. I've got it all clamped in my vise here, so it's not moving anywhere. And I want to mark the holes where I'm going to put the threaded inserts. Now I've got the drill bit that fits in here with no slop whatsoever. I'm going to do one side, then the other, and then I'm going to open it up to its fullest point, and then I'm going to mark another hole. So let's do that. So I've got this all the way in to the corner, like so. Now it's a brad point bit, so I've marked the where it's going to drill. There we go. Now I'll undo the clamp. And I'm going to drill this hole now. Yeah, I'm going to drill this hole now, so I can put it in and use the actual nut to hold it down. As you can see, I've got the first threaded insert in here and I've got the nut already in. I just want to do this one as well. What I'm doing is I'm marking the furthest most point that this is going to come in. Let me just show you that. So that'll bottom out there, which means it'll be fully closed. So now, the next thing I've got to do is mark the next hole, which will be here somewhere, where it's going to be in the fully open position. But first I want to drill this hole, put the threaded insert in, then I can set up for this second one. So let me get ahead and do that. Now I got this idea. I was sort of wondering how I was going to get all this to, how all this is going to move and slide and not get in the way of anything else. So I jumped onto YouTube, as I normally do, and I found the Wood Knight, Paul Jenkins. And I had a fair idea this was how I was going to do it, but then when I saw Paul Jenkins did it exactly this way, I thought, yep, that's the correct way to do it. Okay, so there it is, closed in the fully closed position. So if I'm ever routing something or jointing something, I can keep it closed. Now I'm going to open these up slightly. And put them in the fully open position. So that's going to allow, if I've got a really, really wide router bit, for example, well, you can get them wider than this anyway, but if I get a really wide router bit, I can open the jaws up, or the fence, I can open the fence up. So now, I'm just going to cinch these down a little bit so it doesn't move on me. And the most important thing I have to do is to make sure that they're flush, that they're level. So I've got a big spirit level, which is on the other side of the garage, as it always is. There we go. And I'll just tighten those down a little bit further. So they are now level. Here we go, level. Which means now I can mark my second hole. Here we go. So now I can take these off. By the way, these sit below that, so they're not going to interfere with anything. So there's the first one, and there's my punched hole there. I'll just drill the hole. Now I've got to be careful when I drill this hole out because my pipe is behind here and I don't want to drill straight through it. So, 2 more threaded inserts. That's in. And that's in. Voila! Okay, let's go put it on the old table saw and see how it looks now. Okay, there it is attached to the LS Positioner. I'm just checking to make sure these are still square and it's 90 degrees, beautiful. Unbelievable. Sensational. Really well done. Now, just to test the opening and closing mechanism. There we go. Straight in. Sitting beautifully over that plate. Yeah, depending on the size router bit that I've got in here, I can close these up. And there it is. All right, what I'll do is I'll leave it at this. I'll turn this into a 2-parter because I think this video is going to be long enough as it is. In the next video, I'm going to make this whole attachment here so that if I'm running a piece that's taller, I'm going to need some sort of support up here because that's not going to be enough support. So that's what I'll do. So the next one will be that, and I'll finish off the dust extraction system, which means I just got to cut off the pipe a little bit. Just got to cut off that pipe where the mark is, and then put a 90-degree elbow on there so I can plug my my vacuum cleaner into it. And that should be it, I should say. So if you like what you saw so far with this build, give me a thumbs up. If you think there's something I could have done a little bit better, please let me know. I always take constructive criticism on board. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye for now.